Hello everyone, Lord Sora here. We are back with another Necromancer related content. So since patch 1.1.1 just dropped, I thought it would be a good time for me to give you guys some quick rundown of some of the major changes that will significantly impact the overall gameplay experience as well as the builds I have put out. I'm lucky enough to have friends that are very dedicated to PvP, and we have been constantly testing the new seasonal hearts, patch 1.1.1 changes, so I can make sure to provide some good information here through my channel. So sit tight because we are about to release some crucial findings you want to know when you're thinking of your next PvP build. If you're interested in specific parts of the video, timestamps will be marked as well. Before we jump into the patch 1.1.1 updates, I have to let you guys know that the Shadow Summoner build I have put out has been absolutely menace in both PvP and PvE. If you haven't checked out my ultimate PvP build guide video already, please do so, where you can find that link in the description. I covered a lot of key things in that video, especially towards PvP side of things. You can see here our stats at level 95. We are getting close to 60k attack power, which you may say that attack power is not a true reflection of our damage, but when you're a minion and Mandolin build, your Mandolin proc damage actually scales off of your attack power. So the higher the attack power you have, the more proc damage you get from your Mandolin ring. Ignore the armor and HP for now. Once we finish our Paragon board, armor will be around 7.2k and health will be around 121k. I haven't been specifically pushing nightmare dungeons with this build so far. The highest I have done was tier 70 and it was actually super easy, and I'm pretty sure this build can finish tier 100 and even take a stab at Lilith in my opinion. So maybe this will be the first PvP based build that can push these PvE contents efficiently as well. When things line up, we are actually doing close to 20 million damage, and keep in mind this is with PvP stats while keeping our crit and vulnerability damage scaling below soft PvP cap. So this build actually often one-shots people in PvP. If you're not aware of some of the hard caps and soft caps in PvP, I have list those stats in the previously ultimate guide video as well, so make sure to check that one out. There's a lot of good information on that one. One thing I haven't dived deep into in the previous video was the seasonal hearts. However, I have been constantly testing every heart and every combination over and over again to come up with the best combinations, and also which ones work and does not work in PvP, so I can release a better information on these hearts. First one, the almighty Barber heart. I think it's quite known by now that this heart is the best heart right now, and if you're playing a burst build and not running this thing, you're not doing it right. Second one, Creeping Death. On this one, if you are playing a dot build, not running this one, again you're missing out, because even though the second part of the heart says monsters, this actually works on players as well. We have tested this with friends and we noticed that the dots actually do tick so much harder when the opponent is unstoppable in PvP. So overall, if you are burst based build, Barber. If you are a dot based build, Creeping Death. Otherwise, you're missing out some serious fire potential. Let's talk about some other options. My personal favorite, and I think it's an absolute must have for Necro, is the Sacrilegious Heart. Minion or non-minion based, this is a must have and I don't think we need to talk about it much. Almost another must have is Decrepifit Aura. This can have a variety of uses, but you want the highest version of this that says 0 enemies, which guarantees 100% uptime of the skill. I think this is a really good one as well. Let's talk about some other options. The Revenge Heart. I was actually quite excited to try this one. However, this one is quite buggy. I've been testing it over and over, and I swear sometimes it works in PvP and sometimes it doesn't, but the overall conclusion we came up is that the DR is not flat 20% in PvP, it's actually much lower, so the impact sometimes feels good and sometimes it doesn't. This is your call if you want to gamble on this heart. Another one I was excited about is the Prudent Heart. This one is still a really good option in my opinion, especially in high-end dueling. However, this heart only procs against direct damage. Like against dot builds, this heart will not proc. Even if the tick is more than 20% of your HP, this heart will not proc. So I personally do not like that, since poison rogues and double swing bleed barbs are the hardest hitting enemies out there, and they are relying on damage over time. I think this covers all the valid heart options for necromancers out there in PvP. So let's talk about the patch 1.1.1 changes. I think there are some very crucial changes that will impact the PvP gameplay drastically. The first change, the temerity. The all stats is going to be replaced with maximum life, and the barrier is going to be based on maximum life as well. It actually already stated in the tooltip maximum life, however, it was working based off of base life. So previously, even if I had 20k HP, I would get around 6k shield. So this change initially was super exciting to me because I was thinking, well, I have 20k HP, I'm about to get another 16k barrier, 80%, which sounded crazy strong defensively. However, things did not quite work that way. There's a barrier cap in Diablo 4 where you can't have more barrier than your base life. So even though it scales off your maximum HP now, you still cannot get barrier more than your base life. So instead of being able to have another 16k barrier, I was able to get barrier only up to 7,959. Before the temerity change, I was able to get around 6k. So I said, oh well, it's okay. Another extra 2k barrier, it is still decent, since barrier was still the best defensive mechanic in the game. Until this change. Bonus damage or bonus effects that are applied on hit or when dealing damage will now apply the same effect through barriers. The exploit paragon glyph will now apply vulnerable to enemies that have an active barrier. This means that you will be able to apply vulnerability on enemies when they have barrier now, as well as poison, crit damage, and any other dot damage you may think of. If you didn't know, in PvP, enemy would not be able to put a dot on you, and damage over time abilities will not go through the barrier. Additionally, enemy would not be able to crit on you or proc vulnerability on you, which is why druids were so unkillable in PvP, which is why barrier was also the strongest defensive mechanic in the game until this patch. With patch 1.1.1, all that is now changing. So the barrier was literally the counter against poison rogues or bleed barbs. So long story short, before this change, poison rogues or bleed barbs will not be able to proc their dot if you had an active barrier. Once the best defensive mechanic in PvP, barrier is now actually quite useless in PvP in my opinion. You're going to get another 8k barrier maximum, and then it will be just eating through by one poison tick or a burst ability. So if you are really building towards barrier and barrier generation in your PvP build, it's time to really rethink all of that. With that being said, one change I will have in my build is that I will no longer run temerity. Instead, I plan to run these pants with immunity bubble aspect on them until I find something better. I think this covers some of the most important changes on the PvP side of things. If I miss anything, and if you have some other ideas or questions, feel free to comment below. I also have a Discord server link below. A lot of new folks have been joining every day. We have been testing, discussing things together as well. If you are a chill dude who's trying to get more into PvP or even PvE, feel free to join. If you made it all the way here in the video, I appreciate you. Please like and subscribe. We have a lot more to share in coming days, weeks, months, years. Lord Sora here. Cheers.